On.
Instagram. Hi,
Excited.
Aleah. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
Good, Aleah. You and I have never actually stopped and talked to each other very much, but
That's right.
I see you everywhere,
Yeah, you're right.
and
You're right.
I really appreciate all the work that you do at Northview. I actually want. I have all sorts of questions. First of all, you're here because you are an ER nurse,
That's right. Yep.
right? At the Abbotsford Hospital.
Yep.
Okay, before we get into all that kind of stuff, I actually need to know, or I'd like the people who are watching this to know kind of your story and how you got to Northview and if you like
Okay.
Ezra.
Yeah. That last one, we'll leave that last one off. Yeah, so I was born and raised in Abbotsford. My parents have been and are sweet believers, so raised, trained up in righteousness. And um, and went to Virginia for nursing school, so lived out there for 5 years,
Where
worked.
in Virginia? What did you do? Why? Well, why did you go to Virginia and nursing school there as opposed to, I don't know, UBC or whatever?
Yeah, so I am a dual citizen, so my parents are both American.
At a girl.
Yes,
The best of us are,
the
you
best of
know?
us are.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just, based on that, there's just a lot more opportunity for schooling, and I was quite a homebody in high school, and so I when I was deciding to go to school, I had sisters who were at the school. Liberty University is the,
Oh yeah. Yep.
lots of people know it. Um, so I had sisters that had gone to the school, graduated from that school, and at the time that I was deciding, I had one sister that was working at the school at the time. So being a homebody, high school chick, I knew I needed to get away for the good of my soul. But I also, it was also sweet for me to have, it was also sweet for me to have my sisters there. And so that in combination with their nursing school has a sweet, like,
Yeah.
missional type nursing, and that was kind of my heart going into nursing. And so that
It's the largest Christian college in the world, I think.
it is. They
Yeah,
boast about
something.
that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, Liberty.
Yeah.
So why did you want to go into nursing? When did you know you wanted to go into nursing?
So I actually, my whole family is extremely squeamish, and so um, I figured that I would be as well. So I was always interested in the nursing. I was always interested in the medical field. Um, but I was like, I'm a Teer. There's no way I'll handle any medical stuff well. Um, and
Do you handle medical stuff well? I just want
so
you
so
do.
I do now.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
good.
praise the Lord. But my one of my first nephews was born in my junior year of high school, and before that I hadn't had much exposure to the hospital or anything like that. And so I went in to visit my sister-in-law, my brother and sister-in-law she was laboring, and I went in there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And so I loved it, and I loved the hospital environment, like very few people do. And then after that, I kind of decided to try nursing and see if I could master the squeamishness of my family.
Well, good. That's great. So, are you? What high school did you go to?
Oh, I was homeschooled.
Oh,
It's a wonderful thing.
the best. It's the best school, right?
It is,
How many
yeah. We
people were at
actually,
your How many
me and my
people were at your
brothers.
graduation? You're like,
It
yeah,
was a solo grad, Jeff.
that's so good. Did you
Yeah.
walk down the aisle anywhere, or did you? No. Did they
No,
play
we
music?
didn't. Yeah, we didn't do that. No,
No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't make fun
no,
of homeschool. I'm a big fan.
that's okay.
Um, so, how did you get to Northview? Did you grow up at Northview and then left and came back, or?
Nope, I didn't. My family, when I was away in Virginia, my family my family here, that would be my parents, and then brothers, sister-in-laws, began to attend Northview. And so when I would come home for the summer or breaks or anything like that, sorry, I need to readjust. I've been told I need to readjust.
Hey,
So
you can
when,
see your face now. Look at that.
so sorry, I trialed this and
It's
I
all
thought the
good. That's
lighting was
great.
a lot better.
And
Um,
I'm leaving the comments on too. just because I can fix them, but if I do push buttons on this, it usually shuts it off. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm going with it.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
yes. How'd you
Better
get to,
lighting, people.
you came to Northview at the
Yeah.
after you came back.
So
Yeah.
on my breaks and stuff, I would come home and go to church with my family, and so Northview kind of became like home church-ish for me during my student years. And then when I moved to Bellingham after a year of working in Virginia. Lived and worked in Bellingham. I have a
Where?
huge heart for Bellingham. Anybody that knows
Where
me knows.
did you live in Bellingham? That's like I went to college in Bellingham. My
I
wife's
know.
from there.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So where in
Um,
Bellingham did you live?
I lived on this sweet little street called East Maplewood.
Yes.
It was, do you know it?
Oh yeah.
No
I know
way.
Bellingham like the back of my hand, man. Yeah, it's like my second home. Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
I know
gosh.
East Maplewood. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I lived on East Maplewood, loved it, biked everywhere, biked to the
Yeah,
ocean, swam all the
yeah.
time.
Well,
That
you would
was
from there. It's beautiful.
magical,
Yeah,
magical land.
near
Yeah.
the airport up there. Anyway, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now you're here, and you're like a big servant at our church. Like I see you everywhere. Like you do more at Northview than I do, which isn't saying much because I just show up on. Seriously, I just show up on the weekends and say a few words and it's.
Yeah, so I started youth leading.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago at Northview, and that I have a huge heart for youth ministry. I love high school chicks. So that kind of started my involvement in the church, and I've stayed youth leading. My girls are grade 12 now. And so I'm finishing off with them. And then I've also been a part of young adults for a couple of years and leading a community group with them. And that was precious time. And then I've also, I've also been a part of women's ministry, their precepts or Bible study.
You're fantastic. Awesome.
Oh,
we should clone
bless you. Thank you.
We should clone you. No, thank you very much for being involved like that. It's so cool.
Well, it's been sweet because I think the Lord has given me a lot of opportunity just in like life circumstance.
Yeah.
And my job allows me to have a lot of extra time. So, so the Lord has like given me a lot of opportunity to serve as much as I have. And I know that isn't always the case. So it's been sweet.
No, it's fantastic. We asked you to come on here, first of all, because we think you're great, but also because you're involved on the front line of this whole thing. There's a number of people in our church who are involved in it, but you're working in ER. Yeah. What is how is your job different now than it was before this whole thing happened? Is it very different at all for you, or is it pretty similar?
Okay, so there's kind of two parts to that. It isn't different in terms of we, particularly in the ER, you're just exposed to anything and everything, and you work in the ER knowing that. So we're exposed to a lot of different worse diseases, if you will, than the coronavirus. But so in terms of attitude going to work, or kind of like sense of fear or that kind of thing, of exposure, that kind of thing, it doesn't really change. And that, I would say, like, majority of my coworkers would say that it's kind of that part of it doesn't really change for us. We're used to that idea of being exposed to a lot of things.
So there's not more, you guys, there's no level of fear greater now than there was before.
No, sorry. I wouldn't say that there's no level of fear greater, because there is kind of an underlying, sense of dread for what could happen or what could take place. The exposure part of it for all of us, that doesn't change. The exposure fear doesn't really change. Right. But
do you have to dress differently now than you did before? Do you guys have to?
Yeah, so that's the second piece to it. Work is so much more complicated now. We now go in different doors. We cannot enter into the ER in our usual way. We have to wear a mask all the time. which I don't know if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever experienced wearing a mask for 12
No,
hours.
no, it'd be
It
like
is so irritating. And actually little things like that you
the
wouldn't think
ears.
of, like your ears start
Yeah.
like it hurts so bad. So little things like that, we have to wear goggles all the time. Your goggles get fogged up when you're talking to patients and putting in IVs, and there's just so we are like gowned and all that. So that in that sense, work is so much more complicated
Yeah.
than normal. So yeah, it is different and it isn't different. There's kind of two different.
So people, I think a lot of people are wondering, I mean, I think most people kind of, we've been told enough now that it's really bad, that we believe it's really bad. Is it really bad?
So I'll just speak to our community.
Yeah.
So we our community, we have, and I say we, and what I mean by that is like is me and my coworkers in the
Yeah.
ER and in the intensive care unit. So I work in both those areas. And we have been really surprised at how our community has not been hit as much as we thought it would be.
Good.
So, and that changes every day. You know, every day could look different. But over the past, I would say 3 weeks of being in the ER, being in the ICU, we have been really surprised at the lack of numbers that we thought we were gonna have. So it actually is. I love sharing that because I think, yeah, people at home and people who don't have like somebody in healthcare that they're close with or involved with, you can kind of garner quite a bit of fear from the media, and it just depends on who you watch and what you watch. But
we always hear the worst case scenario, right? I mean, like
totally.
if you're going to look online, you're going to see the pictures of somebody who's just been, you know, decimated by the disease.
Totally. Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
whereas the percentages, at least it looks like the percentages are, I mean, the vast majority of people, like 99%, 98% of the people get it, will be okay in the long run. But
yeah, right. Yeah. And we have a ton of the numbers of the people that have recovered or are recovering, right? So yeah, and I think for our community, we're hoping that I mean, we thought it was going to be really bad last week, and it wasn't.
Good.
And so
praise God, right? I mean, like,
I know, totally, honestly, like so, and that could totally change, but we are hoping that our community has caught it quick enough, and the social distancing and the kind of the community involvement in that, that we've caught it quick enough that we are not going to experience the extent of other areas. So
those people who you've seen who've had it, like, how does it affect? How, I mean, you're right. A lot of us haven't seen it, but we just read online. But like, what happens to somebody who's got COVID-19 normally? Is it everyone thinks they have it? I think I have it now. My family thinks they have it. Everyone thinks, you know, I've got a little cough or whatever.
Yeah. So so the symptoms can vary depending on the person. Mostly it's a flu-like illness, right? So mostly it is a respiratory kind of a thing. But it comes with a fever, usually comes with high fevers at the kind of height of the illness. A cough, a dry cough, a fever. Those are kind of the two telltale signs of it. And so people, the thing that is tricky about this virus is that the most, you know, we hear talk about the vulnerable population, so the more older generation, and then those with pre-existing medical conditions who would have difficulty fighting anything that they took on. So we see them come in after maybe a week or 2 weeks of having kind of flu-like illness. And the tricky thing with this virus is that when it hits a certain point in the respiratory system, patients will deteriorate quite quickly.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of the scary bit about the disease process, is that once it gets to a certain point, there is kind of a quick escalation of of the illness. So
Yeah, so you want to catch it as quick as you can, and yeah. That's good. Like, does it make a whole lot of difference for you to be a Christian doing this, or not?
100%.
Like, how? I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, how does your Christian faith influence the way that you look at this and the way that you you interact with your work and all that?
So, obviously there is a large, well, there is a deep anxiety with, amongst any of like our community and stuff. Particularly, I think healthcare workers, there is a deep anxiety, and there's also like an emotional fragility piece to this, because a lot of us are isolating from our families, and that is so tricky for a lot of people, and can create such an emotional fragility. And so as a believer, we, Psalm 37:11, this is such a beautiful psalm. It talks about the meek will inherit the land, and they will delight themselves in abundant peace. And so the meek is kind of just a translation for like those who know they're needy. And so we as believers should be people who have recognized our neediness before the Lord, and have accepted salvation based off of that recognition of neediness. And so we as believers are the meek who should delight themselves in abundant peace, and that's what's available to us. So that bit for me has been so sweet. Honestly, that psalm has been so sweet for me over the last 3-4, well, over the last month. So that abundant peace bit is totally transformative for walking into work and walking into a setting where there is strong, just an emotional kind of, just a deep anxiety amongst my coworkers. And so, that has been sweet, to be near the Lord and close to the Lord in the midst of this. And then also be able to speak to coworkers who they have no hope outside of this world. And to be able to walk in confidence in that delighting in abundant peace amongst coworkers who are racked with anxiety and coming into a workplace that is familiar to them. And so yes, totally transforms my perspective on my job, and totally
that's so great. That's so great, Aleah, sorry. That's so great. Are you well, how can we pray for you? There's a lot of people who are here, and everyone who's watching this, if you're a believer in Jesus, the moment this is over, you're going to say a prayer for Aleah. Okay? So how can we pray for you?
I think two things. I think for me, this is something that I have been so asking the Lord for the last month, is just that in our hospitals, that we serve a God who doesn't waste anything. And so in our hospitals, I'm asking the Lord to bring revival amongst my coworkers, and asking him to like bolster up his people that are there. So that I think I would love prayer for that. And I know like I have a lot of believing coworkers who would love prayer for just good courage and boldness in walking in that abundant peace in our workplace, and being light and life for our coworkers who do not know the Lord, and who have no hope outside of this world. So that would be awesome. I'm actually asking the Lord for revival in our hospitals. That's in great. Our community. And then I think, and I think just the emotional fragility kind of for a lot of us, not having kind of the responsibility of, we have the most exposure in our community probably. And so just
safety.
Well, kind of the safety bit, but also just a like strength, emotional like stability, and kind of just a like, okay, Lord, help us to lean into.
Right. Are you tired?
Not not bad. I think this is going to be kind of a long road. So a lot of us initially started picking up quite a bit because we were kind of had this hero complex that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you
that's
can
good.
do it. Um, and now we're recognizing that, oh, this might be like 6 months.
Yeah, a little while. Yeah,
So I think a lot of us are like recognizing, okay, we can't just dive headlong and have this hero complex of working all the
yeah,
time. Um, so no, I am well rested and ready to get
good.
back into work tomorrow. So it's
That's
good.
good. So everybody's on here is going to pray for it. Can I just speak for everybody who I know that you
Hmm.
guys, honestly, if this is a war, you guys are the Navy SEALs of this thing. And
Hmm.
God bless you for doing this. I mean, it's such a redemptive work that you're doing, going in there and facing this. And so from all of us to you, thank you so much for what you do, and especially how you
Thank
bring
you.
your Christian faith to be a part of it. It's just wonderful and awesome to see a real example to everyone. I mean, me as well. I
Hmm.
don't think I'm a servant like you are. So I like, so I'm, it's really great
Thank
to
you.
see this. Are you encouraged? I mean, there's a lot of kids who are putting their hearts in the windows. Did you
Yeah,
see that and stuff?
that's so sweet. Honestly, our community has been amazing. And I know I have a good friend, Becca, who works in Chilliwack as well, and together our communities have been amazing. We have we have gotten tons of food, like lots of restaurants have donated food. There's
Awesome.
like we've had kids write cards. We've had like we hang them up in our staff room. Um,
That's great.
and we had a daffodil farm. I can't remember the name. I'd love to give them a shout out, but we had a daffodil farm donate a ton of daffodils to us. And so like
Lovely.
outside of our ER, as we walk in, there's just like
Yeah.
rows and rows of daffodils. So that like things like that, our community has been amazing.
We're,
And
we're, we're proud to call you our friends, and proud to say that we know you. You
uh,
are the heroes among us, and we're really are thankful. You can see all these people
mm.
who are writing this, and I know if we weren't doing this 6 feet thing, there'd be a lot of people who are going to hug you after this is over. So
I would
you
love
might just want
all
to get a
that.
line, because there's going to be a long line of people who are going to be like, "Give me a hug. You're amazing." So yeah.
Oh,
Hey, I'm going to open up a couple things to some questions. I think we have like
sure.
4 or 5 minutes left. If you want to ask a question here, you should ask it to Aleah.
Keep it
Everyone
simple,
just says,
people.
"We love you, we love
Keep
you,
it
we
simple.
love you, we love you." Uh, so you are the most liked person I've ever seen on here. My boys were on last night. Nobody said that about them at all.
Oh,
Understandably. But are there anybody who has questions here? You can write it in the bottom. Anything you want to know from
anything.
a nurse? You know all these people, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, a lot of them, yeah. Been seeing these names come across.
Are you a big are you a break are you a big Instagrammer? Is this something that you're like right in? It's your first
No.
live Instagram?
Oh yeah, this is my first. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
do.
had to have Dakota Teeson walk me through it this
No,
afternoon.
I'm like a total pro at it now. So if you have any questions, I'm your dude, I'm so bad.
Woo!
Hey, do you have that's a good question. Do you have enough
PPE.
PPE? Yeah.
Yeah, so PPE is just like a personal protective equipment. So no, we every day there's a like, okay, we're running out of this at this bit, and we have changed sets of gowns multiple times because we've run out of this type, and so now we have to use this type, which is not as good, and now we're using a different type. So we're constantly every day there's kind of a like, ooh, hopefully. So we are conserving a ton. There's a lot of conserving that we're doing. Like we take one mask and we try and wear that for as long as possible, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, that we are not overusing stuff or flippantly using stuff because there is a lack. Yeah. Hey
So one of
Josh. Wow.
that question's a good one. It says that what do you wish the public knew more than what we hear on the news? Like you compare what your experience is to what's on the news. What do you wish more people knew?
I think particularly in our community, I I I love to tell people the that it is going well, and that we don't have we have been surprised. Like I said, we have been surprised by the slow progression of this for our community. So I love to tell people that because yeah, the ER, there's this kind of mystery there. We have no visitors, nobody can come into the hospital, and so there is kind of a mystery there of like,
Yeah.
what is going on in there? Is it crazy? And I get that all the time. People like, is it crazy? And so no, it is not crazy, and our community has done a really good job of not of yeah, our community has done a really good job of isolating and keeping the disease or the virus, the spread down.
Yeah.
So that I am that is something that I love for people to know.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear you encouraged. You know what? The truth is that it's gotten to the point where I think the bad news seems to be all we ever hear. You know, it's going to last the next 4 years. And
yeah,
man, I read an article today that was basically the world's going to end in like 20 years because this is just going to kill everything. And I was like, oh, come on, stop. You know what I mean? And after a while, you're just like, you know what? Actually, I'm encouraged every day that I see Bonnie Henry show up, who, by the way, she's like the greatest lady. She's going to be a hero at the end of this. Right? Everybody's going to want Bonnie Henry to be the prime minister of the country, right? But she's like, you know, it's great to see the curve is sort of flattening. And so all you guys out there, what we're doing is really cool. And it's like it's working, I think. So save Aleah's life and don't go out. Don't, you know. So thank you so much for joining me for this.
Thank you for having me.
The next time we see each other, we're going to talk face to face, though.
We'll talk.
See you across the room. And
we'll talk about our love for Bellingham.
I know your name. Yeah, actually, my wife's going to want to talk to you a little bit. She grew up there and has a deep love for Bellingham. So yeah, that's awesome. Anyway, God bless all of you. God bless you, Aleah. Everyone remember to pray for Aleah as soon as you get off here. Pray for her. And thank you so much for all that you do, okay? Take care.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye, everybody.